All right, so for chapter 1, networks, security, and privacy. Wrong button. There we go. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is networking. And what is a computer network? A computer network enables two or more computers to share network resources. This could be things like software or licenses, printers, data files, and most likely the internet connection. At your house, you probably have all of these things. Maybe not the software licenses, that one probably isn't there. But hopefully you're sharing your printer, whether it be a network-based printer or one that's USB that you're sharing from one computer to another. You might be sharing data files. If you're not, you really should be. A NAS, so network attached storage, is a really useful device for managing all of your files in one location. And you definitely are sharing your internet connection. Now, computer networks increase productivity by saving time and money. So again, by putting everything in one location, it's going to save your company time and money. At your house, not so much a big issue, but for a company, this is going to be mandatory. Now, when it comes to P2P or peer-to-peer networks, each computer is going to be considered an equal. So that is, again, kind of what you have going on at your house. Every computer that you have on your network at home is equivalent to everyone else. There's no one that's the server and no one's a client. Most likely everything at your house is just a peer-to-peer network. Everyone's going to be equal. You just have a whole bunch of computers. They might be sharing resources, but no one's doing one special job. That is going to be different from my house. I do have a server running that has my file sharing, my media server, my photos, all those other fun things. It's doing its own dedicated thing. But for most people, each computer is going to be considered an equal there. So everyone's, as I said, sharing resources, printers and files and whatever else. In Windows world, every computer is on a peer-to-peer network will belong to a workgroup. Windows has a default workgroup, and it's called workgroup, surprisingly enough. So that is how Windows does it by default. You can name it whatever you want, but by default, Windows goes with workgroup. Windows does enable you to easily set up peer-to-peer networks, although I will say I've had some issues if you are going to actually follow through their tutorial or their guide per se. It's much easier just to say share this folder than to actually go through that, and I found it causes more problems than it actually helps. So having a peer-to-peer network at home is definitely going to be a requirement. Now, if you move into your business world, this is when we live in the world of servers. A server is a multi-user computing system running a network operating system, with its purpose to provide services such as internet access, email, file or print services, access to certain things, denying access to other things, all sorts of lovely capabilities like that. Now, with your server goes along the clients. Clients are anyone who are accessing the servers. As simple as that. Now, to go along with servers, normally we don't have one server running one operating system and that's it. Normally we're doing what's called server virtualization. And this is allowing you to run multiple versions of the server software on the same computer. So you have one really kick-ass computer that is going to be running multiple operating systems on it. So we're actually virtualizing the computers. It allows you to make use of all of the different resources on that server, as well as keeping things separate. So it allows you to keep things a bit more secure. It also allows you to have better uptime, because if one thing fails, it doesn't take the entire system down. It just takes one virtual machine down. So it allows most things to have better uptime and things like that. This takes us to the wonderful world of infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. This allows access to companies that access servers that are not actually at them. So this is going to allow access to company A servers to company B servers through the internet. And basically, instead of having all of your servers located locally to you, you're actually basically farming this out to someone else, so you have your servers located offsite. Now, this does increase latency and access time and maybe your internet usage, but it also simplifies a lot of things. So for smaller companies, this does make a lot of sense. As we move on to topologies, we have three main types that we're talking about here. We have our bus type topology right here. And our bus type topology is nodes connected using a single cable, which is terminal on each end, and the data packets move back and forth along the cable. So even though these look like they're like, oh, we're all sending information to the right, they're actually really just connected. And when they send information, it actually goes right and it goes left because of how they're all connected. And they all end up talking on the same main highway per se. Kind of the downside here is if this one trunk gets broken, right there for whatever purpose, these two definitely are going to be down. And the rest might be as well, because if you don't have your terminating resistors on the end, your bus topology could fail. So it is definitely something that you want to think about. I should say topologies are the physical layout of your LAN. And this describes the configuration of the devices and the networks. So bus topologies, they work. They're not the most ideal in my opinion. Next takes us to ring topologies. Ring topology connects nodes using a single cable, but in this case the ends of the cable are connected and the data packets move around the circle in one direction. So you're always sending data out, and it always moves around this way and it comes back around. Older ring topologies were based on a, I forget what it's called. They had basically it was my turn to talk, and then I passed it to you to talk, and I passed it to you to talk, and we just kind of kept passing the token. There we go, token around. And whoever had the token was the person who was allowed to be asking questions or soliciting responses, those types of things. So again, it serves its purpose. Ring topology, in theory, has maybe a little bit of redundancy. If something does break, maybe you could reverse the direction around. But for the most part, ring, circular path. And that leads us to where we are for the most part today, which is star topology down here at the bottom right-hand corner. Star topology is a popular option today. It connects the nodes to a central device, such as a switch or wireless access point. This enables, and this is the big benefit to the star, enables new nodes to be added or moved without disrupting the network. So up here in the ring topology, if you're connecting one device to the next, so if this one, when it sends messages, goes here, and then he sends it to there, if you take this device out, all of a sudden you now have a break. Down here, you could just cut this guy off, and the other four can all still talk to each other. So definitely a big benefit for the star topology. Nowadays, we have basically it's a whole bunch of combinations of stars. So you might have your main network here, which branches off to a different network, which then branches off to the access point, which then branches off to all the devices connected. So you can have multiple kind of stars, and you could also have multiple ways of accessing things. In ATC 201, where the in-person version of this class is, we have a network rack, and we've got 3 different network switches. And they all, what we could do is we could have this switch connect to this switch, connect to that switch, which is fine. But what happens when this network right here fails? Now we can't access this one. So we also actually have this connect to here. This already connects to both. I'm missing connections. This connects to there, that. Anyway, we have double communication for every one. This already connects to both, but we're doing it again. So they all have 2 paths of communication. So that way, if something fails, you still have a way to go from point A to point B. And that just allows for redundancy type of things going on. So really convenient in that aspect to have that little bit of redundancy going on there for not only speed, because you now have 2 times the bandwidth, but you also have an extra way of connecting everything. So star with I'm going to call it a little bit of a modified with redundancy built into it is what most things nowadays are using. This leads us to the wonderful world of ANS. And the first one is going to be a PAN, which is a personal area network. This is going to be an extremely small, hence the term personal. This is normally either one person to another or Bluetooth. So just yourself to yourself, just your phone to your headset or your phone to your car, those types of things. That is going to be a PAN. As we start broadening out, we move into a local area network or a LAN. This is on our all connected devices in the same physical location. So over here, I have a little picture drawn. So we'll call it CPB here. This is going to be our LAN here. So the one building, this is one little LAN right here. All right. So everything in there, it's on the same network. As we go off farther than that, we have our MAN, our Metropolitan Area Network. Yes, I know I'm jumping around a little bit. But anyway, a MAN is a network that covers a single geographic area. So that would be campus. So if this router is our LAN right here, then this would be our MAN access over here on the right. So this would be our MAN. All right. Each of these little ones would be a little LAN. Little LAN there, a little LAN here, and a little LAN up here. All right, now as part of our LANs, metropolitan area, it's single geographic area. A good example would be the wireless Philadelphia that provides wireless access throughout most of the city of Philadelphia. So that would be your MAN. To go along with your LAN, you also have wireless local area networks. So everything in my picture is all wireless, but normally you'd see your little router, you've got your antennas hanging off the back of it, so you could have another computer, laptop, whatever here, another laptop here, your phone there, and they're all connecting wirelessly back to that LAN. So wireless local area network. Next, we go to WAN, which is our wide area network. This connects multiple locations and multiple LANs over dedicated lines. Routers connect to the internet, and if you're connected to the internet, you're connected to the WAN. So HCC in itself, this would be our MAN. And then as soon as we go out here to the cloud, that is our WAN. All right. So MAN versus WAN versus LAN. All right, now this takes us to VLANs. Now, if a LAN is a local area network, then a VLAN is a virtual local area network. So we've already said that these are all our LAN computers over here. So LAN, I'm just going to write a big L on them now. All right, but what we could do with a VLAN is we could say all these green computers are on a different VLAN. So even though they are separated by, 2 routers, 3 routers, for this one to talk to that one, it has to go here to here, to there, and then all the way up to here, then there. If we're on a VLAN, it'll make it look like it's just sitting right here next to it. So a VLAN is a very popular device. It's used for security, to segregate computers and things that aren't supposed to be talking together, to keep resources safe, those types of things. Yep. That takes us to our SAN, our storage area network. This is purely used for companies with massive amounts of data. And then last that I want to really hit up on here is our VPN. Why did we go over a page? There we go. Our VPN, our virtual private network. VPNs are designed to allow you to access things remotely and make it feel like you're sitting right there. So VPN is a virtual private network. It's basically like you being out here in the cloud in Never Never Land. So you'd be out here in Never Never Land connected to the cloud. But again, it'd make it feel like if you were logged in that VPN that was on this LAN over here, it made it feel like you're sitting right here. So you could access all the resources that are local, anything that you would be able to do on a computer sitting there, you could do from remotely. So very, very useful devices. And then the last thing we have is domains. And a domain is a network of clients and servers under the control of one central security database. The central server is called the domain controller. And when you log into the domain through a domain controller, you have access to all the servers in the domain, provide you security credentials, give you access to this server. This saves us time over individually signing on to each server. So when you log into a computer on campus, you're logging in, it goes to the domain server and says, okay, this is a student, and it gives you all the student privileges. If I log in as a faculty, I get all the faculty privileges. So it allows the IT to have one central security location instead of them having to individually manage every computer that anybody could log on to. So it saves a lot of time. Now, when it comes to our network hardware, we have a few different options here. Up on the screen, not options, devices. Up on the screen, I have routers. So on the one on the right, I would call this more our traditional home router. Come on, there we go. And then down here in the bottom, I have a more commercial available router. A router is a device that connects 2 or more networks together. So the worldwide WAN, the WAN to your local network, that would be a router. In campus, it'd be one building connecting back to the CPB building, which is where all the network server gear is, those types of things. It is basically a computer with multiple network interface cards. So especially on this industrial one, you can see we've got 4 Ethernet up here, and then down here, I believe these are all designed for fiber optic stuff. So this has a lot of different network interface cards. But it's a 2 or more. So at home you have 2. You have the WAN port normally on the back. You've got the little yellow port that's by itself. That's your WAN. And then you've got the 4 ports that are grouped together. Those are your LAN. So we are connecting those 2 together with this router. The router may have a built-in firewall, or it could be its own dedicated piece of hardware that all the traffic is going to go through. Next, we have a switch. And up here on the screen, I have a what's called a PoE switch. So PoE is power over Ethernet. So what this is saying is these first 4 ports here are PoE. Those could run things like access points or cameras or lights. There's all sorts of things that can be plugged into PoE ports now. I believe PoE is capable of powering like 100 watts or something over the Ethernet cable. So you could run one cable to something instead of having to run power and internet separate, which is really nice. However, the point of a switch is to connect multiple devices to a single network. So if this was your switch, you would have your router up here, and this port of your switch would go to your router. So now anything that you would plug into these other 7 ports would be connected to your router just like you would be if you plugged directly into it. Your home router, what we typically see as a home router, is actually 3 devices. It is the router, a switch, and an access point. And here we have your access points. So if you're buying an individual access point, this is what you would have. These allow devices to connect to the network wirelessly, and it's basically just a wireless switch. So on the back of all of these, you'd have one Ethernet cable that would come back, and that would connect up to your router, or actually probably connect to a switch. So you got 4 ports here, and then you've got your router there, which is at its 2. So this is our switch, this is our router. So our router goes out to the internet, this comes to the switch, and then our switch comes down to our access points. And depending on your access points and whatnot, you can control over the name. You have control over the Wi-Fi name, security, channel, protocols. There's all sorts of things that you can do. Next, we have modems. Modems allow us to convert digital signals to analog, and there are multiple types of this. Up in the top right-hand corner is our cable modem, so that would be over RF analog. Down here at the bottom, we have our ONTs, which are basically modems, but they are dealing with fiber optics, which I guess technically is still digital. So you have cable, you have phone modems, but basically if it's a device that's taking a digital signal from your Ethernet port, converting to some sort of analog one, that's a modem. At the bottom, as I said, is our ONT, our optical network terminal. That will be taking your Ethernet, which is right there, and converting it to your fiber optic over here on the right. So that is really electrical signals to light signals. Next, we've got a whole bunch of different NICs. You've got a NIC is a wireless network interface card, and this is going to enable a device to network with other devices. Speed is based on the controller built into the NIC. So you could have, traditionally, if you're talking about Ethernet, you have 10, you have 100, you've got 1000, we now have 2500, you've got 5000, and I believe you've got 10 gig network NICs. And those are like the standards. Up to this 1000 is pretty much standard on all new computers. And this 2.5 gigabit is starting to become standard on many desktop computers and things like that. Your speed is also based on how you're connected to it. So up here I have a USB port. The rest of these, you can see we've got PCI, more PCI, more PCI. So it really depends on how you're connecting. USB 3 is actually as capable of 984 megabytes per second is what I have on here. Or if you've got that's PCI 3. So that's per channel. So if you have a 4-channel PCI card, which is what probably all of these are on the screen, you would have almost 4 gigabit per second. PCI 4, that is up to almost 2 gigabit per second for a single channel and almost 8 for a 4-channel. So you can see how we can get massive speeds out of these, especially if you're looking for a 1 gigabit connection. You could do almost an 8 gigabit connection with PCI 4 times 4. USB 2, on the other hand, is only 600 megabit, so we don't get a lot of speed there. USB 3 is pushing 600 megabit, and then once you go to 3.1, you're at 1.25 gigabit, so that 1000 megabit per second connection. So if you want to have a full gigabit network over USB, it's got to be USB 3.1 or better. Up on here, I've got my wired stuff. Down here, right in the middle, I've got a wireless. You can see 2 antennas coming off the back. You could also have cellular. This is an Ethernet to fiber adapter, not Ethernet, but a copper to fiber connector for, I forget what port type that is. When it comes to networks, you've got sharing. So we can share internet, software files, hardware, those types of things. We've already talked about servers and clients and domains. And I said you can do wireless or wireless. That's really what it comes down to. Now, your network protocols, the main ones that you're going to see are TCP/IP, which is Transmission Control Protocol. This handles data packets and ensures they're transmitted reliably, which means there is a handshake going on. I believe TCP is like, hey, give me information. And it's like, okay, here you go. And it's like, thanks for the information. Glad you got it. It's like going back and forth 4 times. IP stands for Internet Protocol, and this is used for addressing and routing packets to the destination. So this is how you go from where you are in your computer in your little world to the Amazon server, wherever it is. If you're ever bored, you can do open up command and do trace, TRACE, trace root RT, tracer, there we go. And then just do 8.8.8.8, and that is Google's DNS server. If you do that, lowercase t probably. If you do that, you can see how many steps it takes for you to get to Google's IP address, or Google's DNS server. So that is kind of a fun one. You also will have UDP, which is a user data cam protocol. This is a simple OSI transport layer protocol for client-server network applications based on IP. UDP is the main alternative to TCP. However, the downside or benefit is there's no error checking. So it's just a request for information. The benefit for that is that means UDP is faster. So if you're in instance where speed is important, UDP is your better preference. Next, we have HTTP or HTTPS. That's your hypertransfer protocol or protocol secure. And then you have FTP, which is your file transfer protocol. When it comes to the wonderful world of wireless, we've got a few different things going on. So I already mentioned how your home router, which is what I have on the screen, is a router, a switch, and an access point. So you can see all the antennas here on the outside. There is our access point part of this. Here is our switch right here in the middle, those 4 ports that are black, and then the router portion is between the yellow switch, the yellow one, and the black ones. So, however, as part of wireless, we have our SSID. This is your service set identifier. This is just the name of your wireless network. You can choose it. There are some restrictions on what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do, but you can make it whatever you like for the most part. My favorite is FBI surveillance van. I always love when I see that wireless network around. Next, we have your encryption. So how are you securing your wireless? And there are multiple different types of options. None is an option. You can say, I don't want any security. Anyone who connects to this is allowed to access this information. Don't suggest that one. You also have WEP. This is the first encryption of its kind. It stands for Wired Equivalent Privacy. So it's the equivalent of being plugged in with an Ethernet cable. You may think that Ethernet cables are the most secure thing in the world. And as long as no one else can access the Ethernet cable, yeah, they're pretty darn secure. The problem is if someone puts a device, if you have your computer and then you've got your switch over here, CNS, you've got a cable going along it, it's nice and secure. But if someone sneaks in and puts a little device right here between the computer and the switch, now it can easily decrypt all the traffic that's got going on there. So that's not something that we want to do. So WEP was the equivalent of that, but it is in the long run, it's easily hackable. It's something that you can just set your computer to monitor it, collect packets, and then you can very easily decrypt that information. After WEP came WPA, which is your Wi-Fi protected access. This is built as a result of the WEP flaws. There are 2 different types of WPA. That is PSK, which is your pre-shared keys, which is the more secured option, or you can have TKIP, which is your temporary key integrity protocol. WPA2 has now graduated, WPA has now graduated to WPA2. This is in a more advanced form. It does AES encryption, which is your advanced encryption standard, and this is what the US government is using to protect classified documents. After encryption, we have WPS, which is your Wi-Fi protected setup. That would be the little button that I have kind of circled here with all the other red on this page. Yeah, not my best choice. Let me quick erase all that. All right, so that would be that red button that's circled. All right, and what that allows you to do is to automatically configure network devices. So if something you're trying to connect to your network is capable of doing WPS, you could put that into WPS mode, hit this button on the router, it will go into WPS mode, and both things will talk, communicate, and they'll get themselves connected to the network when sharing everything over the wireless, unsecure to get things connected. It's a super handy function, but it's also very unsecure because now anybody who accesses your device can hit that button, put their device in WPS mode, and get onto your Wi-Fi very easily. So this is normally a button. It could technically be a pin or USB key, but as I said, it's not the most secure thing in the world. Next, we have cybercrime, which is anything that's happening on the internet and can take many different forms. So if you're doing a criminal crime on the internet, that is cybercrime. One of the best defenses against these types of crimes is to be alert as you navigate the internet and respond to emails. We have cyberbullying, which is usually referred to the exchange between minors, but between adults. It is called cyber harassment. So if you're a minor doing it, it's cyberbullying. If you're an adult, it's cyber harassment. And part of that is now cyber stalking. And this is more serious in nature, and with the stalker demonstrating a pattern of harassment that poses a credible threat or harm. Moving on, we have phishing, and this is when an email or instant message appears. When you get an email or instant message where it appears if someone you normally do business with is contacting you, asking you to verify your account information. Basically, what's really happening is the cyber criminals asking for your account information so that your account can be compromised. So they're like, "Hey, I'm PNC Bank. I need your credentials because I forgot them," type of thing. Or you need to reset your email password. Whatever. It got hacked. Not really actually how it works. We also have farming, which redirects you to phony websites, and without realizing it, as you sign in on the site, you're actually handing the cyber criminal your login information. Often phishing and farming appear in the same attempt, with an email asking you to verify your information by clicking on a link that leads to a farming site. Legitimate organizations never have to ask you for your account information. They are already going to have it. So, something to think about. Some different techniques they'll use are going to be suspicious emails or notifications, phishing and please send money scams, clickjacking, where they're trying to take over your clicks from one thing and send you to another, clickbait, which is where they're trying to get you to click on things, share baiting, and then identity theft as well. And this leads us to the wonderful world of hacking. And there are three main types of hacking. So you have, well, what hacking is unauthorized access to a computer system or network. So this is a common threat against businesses and involves a person accessing a computer system or network without the proper credentials. So you have white hat hackers, which are the ones that get paid to hack. This is, as I was using an example earlier, we'll say HTC said, hey, we want to hire you to break into our computer system and find the flaws so we can patch them that will keep other people from finding those same flaws. That would be a white hat hacker. Then you have your gray hat hack, which are illegal hacking but not malicious. They're not trying to harm you or things like that. They're maybe just doing it to prove a point. And then you've got your black hat, and that is for malicious purposes. You also have hacktivism, which is hacking to make a political statement. Those types of things. And anytime there's a data breach, this is when sensitive data is stolen or viewed by someone who's not authorized to do so. This leads us into the wonderful world of cyber terrorism, which is an unlawful attack against computers or networks that seek to intimidate a government or its people for a political or social agenda. The attacks can come from hackers, criminal enterprises, and foreign intelligence agency. And the scale of attack can affect millions of people, causing millions of dollars and possible loss of life. Next, we have the wonderful world of safe computing. All right, and really, you need to be safe. Safe computing practices include critical to protecting your system and personal information. You have user accounts. They can help provide network access to people while maintaining security. So you want to make sure you've got user accounts set up. I cannot say this is not something I necessarily follow at home, but everyone in your house should have their own account, so that way you don't have the cross-pollination of information. You don't have your daughter using your computer and forgetting to lock it, and then someone else signs in and you can open up your email because your daughter forgot to, put the computer to sleep or lock the account or whatever. You want to keep things separate. This is especially true with the younger kids that you have accessing devices. So the younger they are, the more important having those separate accounts are. That will keep your data, your important stuff, safer. Next, we have user account controls, UAC. Let me go to the next page. So we have user account controls. Oh, we're going to come back to that. So if you're an administrator on a computer, you have full control of the computer, enabling, changing settings, installing software, completing other tasks. And a business, only IC staff should have the administrator rights to the computer system. Because again, it's going to keep you from getting viruses and things like that. Standard accounts, on the other hand, are used for everyday computing. Even the person designated as administrator should use a standard account for daily activities on the computer. You only should elevate your privileges as high as you need to. You should never go higher than that. You should also set up guest accounts, just like you should have a guest Wi-Fi at home. So that way, anyone who comes to your house and says, hey, can I use your internet? You can say, sure, and you can give them that, but they won't be able to access anything actually on your network. So a little bit of give and take going on there. Next, we have our user account controls. This is a Windows computers software, and it will notify you prior to making changes to your computer. It's that stupid window that pops up when you're trying to install software. It's like, are you sure you want to do this? And you're like, yes, I want to do this. However, at the same point, if something else tries to install software in your computer can go, are you sure you want to do this? And you're like, I didn't click that, and now you're thinking it. So this is to help protect your computer against malware and things like that. You shouldn't turn this off. Back in Windows 7, it was horrible. It would pop up all the time. That would be the first thing I would disable when I reinstalled Windows. Now it's actually not so bad. To help with safe computing, you should be having passwords that get changed regularly. You shouldn't keep the same password for years at a shot. A few months is really how often you should be changing it. And you shouldn't just be like, oh, it's password 1, the next time password 2, the next time password 3. That's really not the safest system. So you really shouldn't be doing that. You also should not let your computer remember your passwords. You should, if you're going to do that, make sure you have some sort of password manager that is doing it. Google Chrome has its own password manager built into it. You can get dedicated password manager apps. It's really up to you how you want to do that, if you want to do it at all. All right. Also, having two-factor authentication set up is good. However, using your phone as your secondary source, or at least your cell phone, your number, you're texting it, is really not the most secure because someone could social engineer your cell phone away from you. So where they convince T-Mobile that you don't actually have you are Greg Betts, and this is my phone plan, and I need to get a new phone because I lost my old one. And T-Mobile might fall for that trap and give them one, and now they have your second factor for authentication. So really, using a phone number for things is not the most secure option there. Last, we have biometrics when it comes to safe computers, and this is the measure of human characteristics and provides access to computers much like passwords. So it's using your fingerprint, retinal scan, voice pattern, or face scan to access your computer. So safe computing, yeah, two-factor, good passwords, make sure they're long. We'll do a password assignment later this semester to make you look at your passwords. MAC address. Your book didn't talk about this much, but I just want to point out a few things. One, every device that you have that has a NIC in it is going to have a MAC address. And they all, in theory, are unique. So on the screen, you can see that I've got 2 wireless adapters, and the last digit is different between them. It's probably more likely than not that you're not going to have them one step apart. They're going to be much farther apart. But anyway, it's in theory linked to the hardware of your NIC. So your NIC says, this is my MAC address. Now you can change those, and certain devices like iPhones and Android devices have started actually doing randomized MAC addresses. And so like when you go to Starbucks, every time it connects, it has a different MAC address. And this is there to keep Starbucks from being able to track you as easily. So they're like, okay, you're allowed access, but who are you? They, if you don't want Starbucks to know that you every Monday at 5 a.m. you show up there because they can have your MAC address. So or your phone connects to their Wi-Fi. So that's what the MAC address randomization is. It's a really good thing that you probably want to enable on most networks. At your house, you may not want to if you want your phone to have the same IP address every time. You need to keep your MAC address the same. So a little give and take going on there. And last thing I want to talk about is IP addresses. Currently, we are really in the world of IP version 4, all right, which is a 4-bit number. It's a 32-bit number. So we've divided it into 4 separate sections, each of them being 8 bits. So each section can have a number between 0 and 255. And we've done that to make our lives easier. It's much easier to remember 192.168.115 or something than, I don't know, 32,967.4, whatever it is. Doesn't really matter. But up on the screen, you can see different purposes. We actually have different classifications. So Class A is 1.000 to 126.255. That's for large enterprises, government agencies, etc. Medium, 128 to 191. C, yada, yada, yada. So small entities and home networks, this is most likely what you're using, the 192.168.something.something, as you can see over on the side of my screen. Most likely that is what you are using. I'll go back. So right here. Yeah, if you're rocking the wonderful world of Comcast, then you're actually doing 10. You're doing 10.0.0. something. That is what's going on. And this Y, I'll put Y here too. It's not drawing. There we go. This Y is your specific device ID number. So that is specific to every device. So your home laptop might be .1, your phone might be .2, your parents' phone might be .3, whatever the case is. So that Y is going to constantly increment up. Now, we are using what's called DHCP, which is our Dynamic Host Communication Protocol, and that is to assign IP addresses. So when you connect to your Wi-Fi, you say to the router, hey, give me an IP, and it goes, okay, and it gives you one. Some of them do it based on your MAC address. Some of them it's just like the first person to connect gets 1, the second person to connect gets 2, third gets 3, fourth. And then if someone disconnects, you can reassign that to the next person that connects to it. The ones that are doing it based on MAC address, it's a little bit more all over the place. As I've said, I don't know if I've said, we're on version 4. All right, and so that's 4 8-bit numbers. We are actually running out of IP version 4 addresses. So what we're doing is we're moving to IP version 6, which is 128 bits. That is 340 undecillion possible addresses compared to IP version 32, which is 4.3 billion. All right, so a lot of different addresses there. But we are running low on 4. Now, for home purposes, even business purposes, IP version 4, there is plenty of space. However, if you go into the world of the WAN, where everyone has all these different devices that are connected to the network and phones connected and things like that, that's when IP version 6 starts becoming a necessity. So IP version 4 still does most of the job that we need, but IP version 6 is slowly upcoming. All right, that is all that I have for this chapter.